Okay.
So we're going to get right to the questions, right to the interview. First thing I want to say is thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hop on the Live Better Now podcast. If you don't know much about the podcast, this is all about mental health, mindset, personal growth, and self-development.
Yeah.
I myself run Ironman triathlons, and I do a lot of yoga. And even though I have not gotten into rock stacking yet, for Mother's Day, I purchased my mom this little rock stacking kit.
Oh, great.
And yeah. So we were doing a little bit of rock stacking together, and we were being super mindful. And so, as I was telling her about it, I'm not super privy on like the benefits. I'm sure it's very like therapeutic and things like that. But I saw an Instagram video of you, and you were hosting a retreat.
Yeah.
And you were at this rock stacking arena, which I've seen in a couple of your YouTube videos. Can you tell us a little bit about rock stacking?
Yeah, rock stacking is something that my soul started me on in 2006, I believe. And it happened, I grew up on a farm, a big farm on Vancouver Island, and the farm had piles of rocks, which damage plows and rakes and farm equipment. So whenever we weren't busy, taking care of animals and fixing fences and everything else, my father just put us in the field to pick rocks. And we literally would have so many rocks. There was like a 5-foot wall of rocks around the field because there was that many rocks. And I used to hate it. It would be pissing rain and cold and it's just nasty, hard grunt work, And so a funny thing happened. I really love Rumi's poetry, and I've been studying it for many, many years, even at that point. And I was looking for a master of Rumi's teachings to help me, shall we say, embody the poetry and live it and get a deeper interpretation than I could with my Western mind trying to read, translations of Persian poetry, because there's always something lost in translation. And so I started calling around to, various authors that were experts on Rumi. And I kept striking out. And then I got one who had published the Mothwane, which is about a 40,000 poem collection. And he said he didn't do that kind of thing with people. Then my next step was Coleman Barks, who is one of the most famous translators of Rumi's poetry and puts it to music and does beautiful stuff. And I managed to have a conversation with him. And in the middle of the conversation, he says, "Paul, what do you do for fitness?" I said, "Well, I teach health and fitness, and I teach weightlifting, and I, own an institute. And so I'm always doing fitness." He goes, "Well, I lift rocks and I make things out of stone." And something happened into me where all of a sudden I realized rocks. Wow. I need to get back to lifting rocks. And I remembered, how challenging it was to carry these things and how slippery they were and everything else, And so I just went out and bought a huge dump truck load of rocks from a guy close by that had been expanding his property and had a pile of rocks sitting there he wanted to get rid of. So for $220, I got one of these monster semi-truck dump truck loads of rocks. And I just started playing and creating things. And so, I just wanted to share how that started. But then what happened is, through the process, I learned a lot about myself. Rock stacking can be very dangerous. I've smashed fingers and just exploded them like grapes. It's a miracle that they've healed up. I've gotten bad cuts. I've been hit on the head and had the hell knocked out of me. I've had, big bruises. Rocks have fallen from the top, hit my thigh, and contused my muscles and bones. And so what I found is every single time that something happened to me like that, I was letting my ego push to try to force something to make it bigger or to try to push the edges beyond what was obviously safe, or I wouldn't have got hurt.
Right.
Or I found that I was in a hurry because a lot of times I'd be stacking rocks. When I was later at my Heaven House office, I had a rock stacking area there. So I might have, an hour, but by the time I'd get changed, get out there, then I have to come back and shower. I really only had about a half an hour. So I would try to kind of complete something in a half an hour. So this urgency of time pressure would ultimately cause me to go faster than I could go and do the level of detailed work and awareness to make sure each rock was perfectly positioned so that the stack was stable.
Makes
And
sense.
so some of the first things I learned is that an ego is very, very dangerous. I call them the stone Buddhas because they're ruthless teachers. They always tell you the truth about yourself, and you have to take responsibility for any choices that you make. There's no escaping. We can use the word karma, action, reaction, right? And so I realized that, that even at that stage of my life, even when I started in 2007, I'm 61 now, so I don't know how long ago that was. I was probably in my 40s. And you'd think by the time I was in my 40s that the ego would have sort of softened up a bit. But here I am kind of doing the same mistakes I see, 25-year-old men doing. And so I learned, okay, I got to really pay more attention to, when I'm trying to force a square peg in a round hole.
Right.
And so that slowed me down. And then I also realized that I can't force things into a time slot. I have to learn to just do what I can do really well in a given number of minutes. And instead of always having this urge to complete, I have to give myself the space to take things in stages. So I really learned that I had to watch the ego and be very conscious of the ramifications of letting that be my guide. And then I had to learn that I had to work with time and not compress time or force time. Then I learned, I created a saying for all my students. I say, you never rush in a rock garden because you can get hurt badly or killed, especially when you're lifting big rocks. You can easily get killed. I had a 40 plus pound rock once fall off a stack because I have to build steps out of stone. I try to avoid using ladders, and I don't use any kind of protective any gear on my hands or feet because I want it to be honest. And so I have to build big steps. So some of these things are 14, 15 feet high. So I build steps out of stone, and I have to carry these heavy rocks up these steps. And sometimes I have to actually climb the stack to get higher. So you have to have it balanced perfectly or you'll knock it over. But the most dangerous time is when you're pulling the step stones away, because if you bump the stack and rattle it, the top stone can come off. And sure enough, one day I was just going too fast, pulling a great big 250, 300 pound stone away that I was using as a step stone. It hit the base.
Right.
And fortunately it was sunny out, and out of the left corner of my left eye, I saw something flying, and my immediate reaction was to move my head. The capstone, which was probably about 6, 8 inches across and about 1.5 to 2 feet high. I mean, a good 40 plus pound stone went right past my head, hit my shoulder, almost dislocated my shoulder, bounced off, hit my thigh, contused it right to the bone. And then it bounced off my thigh and hit my right heel and cut the whole heel pad right off, so that the entire half of my heel was hanging down and blood was gushing out. You could see the Achilles tendon and the bone. And so, I tell my students, you must remember, we must never rush in a rock garden, because these are the kinds of things that happen. And when you got 40, 50, 60 people in one area, a lot of them with overinflated egos and haven't learned these things, you have to be very careful, which is why I do a lot of harmonizing with them, chanting, singing, making music with stones, to get them to function like a beehive. And I've never had a single person get injured because of that. But the point I'm leading to is, I say to them, do you understand what I mean? Never rush in a rock garden. And of course they say yes. And I say, okay, now I have a more important question for you. How big is the rock garden? Some of them look around and naturally say, well, it's, from here to here. And they're looking at my rock stacking area. I say, no. We have a physiosphere. We have a biosphere. We have a noosphere, which is the sphere of mind. And we have a theosphere, which is the sphere of beliefs about the divine or the myths that we believe in. I said, I'm going to ask you again. Rocks are the physiosphere. How big is the physiosphere? And most people get it right. They go, well, the entire universe. I go, there you go. So remember, this rule that I'm teaching you in this rock garden, never rush in a rock garden,
Right.
applies everywhere you're on this planet, because most buildings, mountains, rocks, everything around here is physical.
That's true.
So you can hurt yourself in life because you're not paying attention and you're rushing, not realizing that you're in a physiosphere, which is based on rock. The foundation of everything on this planet is stone. The foundation of houses and buildings is stone. So when you look at what we're doing with mass, which is energy encapsulated or entangled, we have to say, how are we? The point I'm making is what you learn in the rock garden. When you say, okay, where am I doing this in the rest of my life? You see it all over the place.
Right. Exactly. No, that's well said. And sorry to cut you off there, but I got a bunch of questions for you. And I feel like you'll talk for the next 45 minutes if I don't cut you off. That was a great answer. And a lot can be learned from the rock garden. And
I don't mind going a little longer if you need to.
I'm sure you will. And I got a lot of questions for you, and I want to ask them. And when you were telling that story about a lot of the lessons that your students and yourself have learned from the rock garden, you explained that don't rush things, right? Yeah. Let's kind of be in flow. Let's not let our ego get the best of us, because these rocks are fucking heavy, and if they fall on us, we can lose a limb or two, potentially die. Yeah. I think of the Abraham Lincoln quote: if you give him 4 hours to cut down a tree, he's going to spend the first 3 hours sharpening the saw. Where most people, they're just going to start freaking sawing at this tree. Right. Hey, let's take a step back. Let's take a deep breath. Let's use our brain for just a second.
A second.
Let's use our brain for just 1 second. Let's think before we act, or what most people don't do, thinking before they speak. Let's think before we speak, and let's speak accordingly.
Just to interject there's an old saying from England that's very powerful: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah, no, that's well said. We gotta, kind of just get our shit in order before we start taking action on things. And as someone, I did a lot of research on you, Paul. Like I was telling the lovely lady that was on here before.
That's Penny, my wife.
Before, like I was telling Penny, one of my really good friends that I've met through the internet. I've never met him in real life, but we have a lot in common. He is a huge fan of yours, and he put me on to you about 3 years ago, and I've been following you ever since.
Cool.
And to all the people that are listening that don't know much about Paul, if you didn't really listen to the intro, Paul is a holistic health expert. That is just like macro level, bird's eye view, right? It's all about movement, flexibility. You talk a lot about your Chek life process: alchemy, air, fire, earth, and water, kinesiology, the success formula. There's a lot of things that go into your approach in teaching about health. However, on this podcast, which is all about mindset, mental health, personal growth, and self-development, I want to take a different angle. I want to take a different approach here. I want to talk about the mental side of things. Now, I watched a YouTube video of yours, and it was recently. You uploaded it 7 days ago, and it was about air. And it was about breath.
Yes.
And it's so ironic that breath work has finally become mainstream, because instead of learning, AP calculus in high school, maybe they should teach us how to breathe every once in a while, because as humans, we breathe too shallow. We breathe out of our mouth a lot of times, but we're supposed to breathe out of our nose. Now, this is very simple, but very elementary, right? And I knew you can dive a lot deeper into this.
Well, let me tell you a fact about breathing that I'll share with you. The average human being breathes 25,900 breaths a day. Do you remember where that number also shows up?
Where?
That's how long it takes our sun to make one lap of the 12 constellations of the zodiac. So just like we have an annual cycle of 1 year, whenever we make it one revolution around the sun, our sun's great year is 25,900 years, through which we go through each of the constellations of the zodiac that affect us psychically. We all know that when Mercury's in retrograde, it's problems with computers and bad banking transitions and everything else. So we know the moon moves the tides of the whole earth, and without it, we'd be dead. So what I'm saying is, we make one lap through all the forces in our galaxy that are acting on us psychically, and that number is stepped down as a fractal in our breathing pattern.
Interesting. Now, my next question, intuitively, I want to say Do you think that's a coincidence? But I'm not going to ask that question. I'm not going to ask that
Well, the
question.
answer is no.
We will be here. We will be here forever if I ask.
The answer is just no. It's
The
not
answer
a
just no.
coincidence.
Yeah, coincidences do not exist in life. But let's get to the first topic of breathing and how important the breath is, and how the people that are listening to this podcast, they can learn one thing about breath work and take it and apply it to their life. So tell us a little bit more about this Chek Life Process Alchemy, and I want you to hone in on the air portion of this.
Yes. Okay. So Chek Life Process Alchemy is built on the alchemical concept that the elements are what make life. So to make this very easy to understand for your listeners, we're all familiar with the concept of chi, which means in English, life force energy, which is also called prana and many other things in different cultures, from mana to odic force, etc. And
this is the breath. Prana is the breath.
Prana is the life force energy that's in air.
Okay.
So it's very, very powerful. If I had more time, I could teach you how to feel it and show you some wild things about prana.
Okay.
But prana is the charge
that we get from deep breaths.
That we get from oxygen. And so it's a very, very strong stimulating effect. I could give you the whole science of it, but it would take too long.
Okay.
But anyhow, prana is a form of chi. It's a form of life force energy. It's not the direct equivalent. There's many types of chi, but prana is one of them. So the word chi in Chinese, if you look it up in a Chinese dictionary, means steam. Okay, so step number one in understanding alchemy is ask yourself the question, if life force energy is the equivalent of steam in nature, because Chinese medicine was based on how nature works. It's not a typical medical system. It's nature-based. So if you say, okay, what does it take to make steam? Well, you have to have earth because the pot has to be made of something, clay, steel, whatever that comes from the earth, right? You have to have water to put into it. You have to have a fire to heat it up. And if you don't have atmosphere or air, there's nothing for the steam to rise in.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Chinese practitioners of Chinese alchemy and the Chinese healing arts found thousands of years ago is that you could not have life force energy without the interaction of earth, water, fire, and air. And there's no way you can be alive without those four elements. If you had no earth, you'd have no body. If you had no fire, you'd have no metabolism. If you had no air, you'd have no breath. And if you had no water, you'd have no capacity for connection, emotion, feeling, etc. You're 99.9% water by molecular count. So you're really a bag of water that's conscious walking around on the planet with a little bit of earth, fire, and air added to it. So the first point is the alchemists realized that these elements were not just physical things. One of the ways they found this out is they begin to notice a long, long time ago, potentially 2,000 years ago, that whenever they were doing experiments and they had things like chemicals inside of glass containers and they were heating them up and trying to convert things like lead to gold, that depending on what their mental emotional state was, the chemical reactions would behave differently. So if they were doing something with a given chemical combination and they were happy, it had a very different effect than when they were emotionally disturbed or angry. So they begin to realize somehow their psyche is being projected into these material forms. So the alchemists came to realize that the elements are not just physical things, that they're ranges of vibration. So just like you have a rainbow and red is the slowest moving light and violet is the fastest moving light, and each of them produces a color frequency, which is a band of energy. Earth is the slowest moving. Water is the second slowest moving. Air is the second to the fastest, and fire is the fastest. So the alchemists saw that fire was what created the divine impulse or the desire to live, and that all things emerge from fire. Our earth came from the sun. It came from fire. Stars are balls of fire. They're the creative agents that create, ultimately, they're what makes galaxies, planets, and everything, and moons.
Okay.
So what you see is that you look at these things as ranges of vibration. So fire steps down to air, which is mind. So first, the divine impulse has this will to experience itself. Then it looks into itself creating a subject-object relationship, and it's looking at itself going, this is me. Now you have the duality that makes mind. But in order to feel itself, it steps itself down into the water element, which is the range of vibration that produces our emotions, all of which is embodied in flesh, which is the earth element. So earth represents any kind of embodiment. Water represents the flow of spirit, emotion, or anything that flows. You can take ice, heat it up, and it becomes water. You can freeze it, and it becomes earth. If you heat it up high enough, it'll become a plasma or a gas. It'll become air, atmosphere. You can evaporate it into the atmosphere, so water can become air. And if you heat that gas up enough, it'll become plasma and jump up another level, which is part of the fire element. So the key thing to understand is that we're not just talking about air that you breathe, or fire that you cook with, or water that you drink, or earth that you make things out of. You're talking about the range of vibration in which spirit steps itself down into form. So to understand that, remember, matter is spirit moving slowly enough that you can interact with it. And alchemy tells you the stages of how that energy converts from something that's moving so fast it's unconscious to something that's tangible. The air element happens to correlate to the frequency that our mind operates at. So just like you have a heartbeat, electrocardiograms pick it up. You can pick up your thoughts with an electroencephalogram. So the frequency that mind operates at in the alchemical model is the air element range of frequency. Okay. So whenever you're thinking, it produces an emotion, so if you're thinking angry thoughts, it causes your water to boil, metaphorically, and you have very strong emotions, and your emotional reactions can actually take your mind over. And however you're thinking and feeling is immediately projected out of your body as your expressions, your postures, your gestures, and your actions. And all of that is the divine fire looking into itself. But if you're angry, you're consuming a lot of metabolic fire or energy. Someone who's angry all the time is going to have a huge amount of metabolic emotional activity, because they're going to be in a sympathetic fight or flight state all the time. That's going to speed their breathing up, because the more fire you generate to match your mind, the more energy it consumes. Like a fire, the bigger the fire, the faster it consumes wood. So when you are in a fear state or a charged emotional state, you're typically going to see the ventilation rate, the breathing rate, rise up to try to match the need for fire, which then fire displaces water. So you get a huge amount of emotional movement. And eventually what happens is it'll burn your emotions out, and you go from anxiety to depression, and your body will wear out because you're so sympathetically overstimulated all the time. You don't have time to regenerate and repair your body, because that's governed by the water element. That's the element that restores. So daylight is fire and nighttime is water. That's the moon time. That's when we're in our anabolic parasympathetic system links to the water element. The sympathetic fight or flight system links to the fire element. The mind is what's making the choices, and the body is what's getting the benefits or the punishments.
Right. Okay. So it's been 25 minutes. I've only asked you one question. I got a couple more questions I want to ask.
Take as much time as you need. I want to give you the answers you want.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And these are very intricate, complex, detailed answers with a lot of context. And I know my audience is going to appreciate that. So now when we think of this Chek Life process alchemy, air, fire, earth, and water.
Yes.
And we break it down, and they're really just spiritual, I'm going to call them things, spiritual things, right? There's life behind air. That's the whole point of it, right? Life behind air. There's life behind earth. There's life behind fire. There's life behind water, right? And when we look at these things, and when we use these things to cook our food, when we use these things to rehydrate, and when we use these things to just stay alive through the breath, we need to be more conscious of the fact that they have a lot more power than their chemical makeup, right?
Yes. Right? Yes, exactly.
So let me ask this question. Okay. So what connects the spiritual part of air and the actual physical part of air? But I want you to answer this question more specifically with how can someone take this knowledge that all this Chek Life process alchemy is spiritual, apply it to their life to live happier and healthier?
Very, very simply. Okay, remember, when you have a big enough dream, you don't need a crisis. most people run from crisis to crisis, don't they?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. So you see, if you don't have a North Star on your compass, then you're kind of like a pinball bouncing around in a pinball machine from relationship to relationship to job to success to failure. But you're not really paying attention to what's happening. You just keep banging into shit and having relationship troubles and lose money and gain money and lose money and get stuck on this drug, or, it's just kind of like a crapshoot. Your life is really just a matter of existence, but it's not got a sense of direction or flow. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that you got to understand is that what your conscious or unconscious dream, goal, or objective for yourself is guiding the choices that you're making. So whatever your story is that you tell yourself about who you are and what your function in the world is and who your people are, if that's not conscious, then you're going to live out your parents and your grandparents and your society's story, because that's what you got imprinted with as a child. So the fire element is what's drawing us forward, because everything about us, we have
why yes. is goal to make $1 million? Why is right. it? So yes. Our fire is our why. What, like, for example, I'll use my goal. I want to be a debt-free multimillionaire. Okay. Why is that my goal? Because I want geographical freedom. I want to be able to go to the gym all day. I want to be able to travel the world, and I don't want to have to worry about paying my bills. So is that a strong enough why? Is that an accurate fire?
Yes, that's the why, but it's also the source of the energy that produces the process that's the how. Okay, so if someone does not have a clear sense of direction, then you see they don't really draw on the account that spirit has within all of us. Our soul's sense of, when you're in love and passionate about something, you can draw spirit right into you just out of the love and intention of it. I mean, if a mother didn't love her child, she would never make it through the labors of being up all night, breastfeeding, wiping bottoms, fixing sick kids. Mm-hmm. But if you try to do that for somebody else's kid, they're not going to get nearly the level of care that the mother can give because they love their child. So you see, all love comes with responsibility. If you don't love yourself, you don't take care of yourself. You forego the responsibility to care for your body. If you don't love your partner, you forego the responsibilities to do the work to keep the relationship healthy. If you don't love your work, you will not participate in the responsibilities that makes for a craftsman or a true master or someone that does really good work. You'll just be average, right? Jung said the average man can never be successful, and that's the fact. So you see, the fire is what is ultimately got to be harnessed. What is in your engine? Fire. If you don't steer it, you'll crash into shit. And that's why Jung says if you don't meet your unconscious on the inside, it will meet you on the outside in the events of your life, and you will call it fate. Right. Okay. So the fire element is where we get clear to the best of our ability. What is it that I want to create in my life now? And if you don't know what your dream is, then it's wise to say, what is my nightmare? Because that's where the most of your energy is being trapped. That's stopping you from actually having the ability to free yourself.
That's a good question.
Okay? Yeah. So if you don't know your dream, then your nightmare should become your dream, because resolving that liberates the tremendous amount of libido or life force energy that's trapped in all your poor me and your little story in your head, right?
Right.
So once you get to the air element, that's where you actually start analyzing and planning and staging. So you say, okay, I want to be a millionaire. I want this level of freedom. I'm this age right now. I make this much money right now. So if I'm going to be intelligent and use the science of goal setting, I'm going to set a goal to increase my income approximately 50% each year, and I'm going to stage it so it's realistically achievable. I'm going to establish values that I have to live by to be that person each day, because I can't wait till I get to being a millionaire to behave like a millionaire, or I'll never get there. Mm-hmm. Right? I have to behave like a millionaire and think like a millionaire and live like a millionaire now. So Dr. Happiness orients to the air element. So once you know what it is that you want to put your fire into, you got your North Star on your compass, then you set values for Dr. Movement. What are you going to put action to? Dr. Diet. What are you going to consume physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually to feed the process? And that's what you're going to embody. And Dr. Quiet, how are you going to make sure you have enough introspection time to watch what you're choosing and make sure you're not acting unconsciously and repeating the kind of mistakes that aborted your last attempt at making
self-awareness.
And you got to have enough rest to rekindle the fire.
Right.
Okay, so once you have the air element activated and you've put a set of values to it to guide the flow of your spirit, so you know how to make dream affirmative choices and stick to dream affirmative values, next you have to emotionalize it. If you don't have enough love to charge that, then the process of changing your old habits into new neural networks will take forever. But research shows in psychology and brain physiology that whenever we have an emotional charge or a passion or a love, that our neural networks reform much more quickly. And the more emotion there is, the stronger the neural drive, which causes the pathways to become more and more efficient. Mm-hmm. So with love and passion, you can actually override the old pathways much faster. Okay. So the water element carries the fire and the direction and the conviction into emotion, which then embeds itself or embodies itself each step of the way. You get more money, that's more earth. You start building your dream house, that's more and more earth. So you take the dream, the plan, emotionalize it, and it starts to build itself right in front of you. And that's literally the process of alchemy happening right in front of you.
Yeah. Interesting. That's a great way to put it. You know, when I talk about goal setting, when I talk about law of attraction and manifestation and self-awareness and habit tracking and high performance and optimizing what we're doing and making things seamless and working in state of flow, I always think about like reverse engineering it. So like, if I want to be 40 years old and be a debt-free millionaire, I got to have my $500,000 house paid off, and I got to have $500,000 in stocks or in the bank, whatever. How much is that every single year? Where I'm at right now, how much do I have to save? Well, I got to make $15,000 to $20,000 a month and live on $60,000 a year. And the only way I'm going to make $15,000 to $20,000 a month is if I make 60 calls a day. If I have 10 clients that are paying $400 an hour, if I do that for the next 4.5 years, when I am 39 and a half years old on June 22nd, 2027, I will be a debt-free millionaire. So it's like, you know, I mean, maybe I take more of like an analytical approach, more of like a scientific approach. I feel like your approach, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure you use my approach as well. And I'm not saying...
it's woven in there. But, you know, I'm in such a tight time window that, you know, that's what my workshop's for, is to show people how to really do this. Right.
And we're going to talk about that. The Chek Institute, all those people out there, if you want to learn more about Paul Chek, we're not done with this interview yet, but you can go over to chekinstitute.com. That's CHEK Institute.com. And you can learn more about the Chek Life Process Alchemy. Now, I want to talk more about mental health. However, physical health is such a big part in our mental health. Yeah. I have a lot of clients that come to me, hey, Zach, I'm anxious. Hey, Zach, I'm depressed. Hey, Zach, I'm addicted to alcohol and cocaine. I don't know what to do. Yeah. And, you know, I don't always give them the same answer. And my programs are custom tailored to their wants and needs and the way that they respond to the type of support I give them. Because some clients, you just got to call them a pussy. You know, like me. No, I'm serious, you know, and I learn the way they respond to my coaching over time. I don't make a decision in the first, second, third, or fourth session, but I'm the type of person, Paul, if you say, Zach, you're not making enough money, you're a failure to your family, you're never going to be rich, I'm going to wake up at 4 a.m. the next day. I'm going to make 80 dials before 9 a.m. If someone says, Zach, you know, you're doing really good. You should have some compassion for yourself. And, you know, you're already doing really well. You're ahead of everyone else and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, am I? Yeah. You know, I get soft. Like my posture gets weak. So I respond better when someone calls me a pussy. And I
that's called a negative motivational strategy in psychology.
That's how I respond. But back to the point of what we were talking about, is like, so when people come to me with all these issues, typically I start with, how often are you exercising?
Yes.
Because just walking 10,000 steps a day, just doing 50 push-ups every single day, just going outside for 20 freaking minutes, breathing some fresh air, getting that prana, getting that libido, getting that life force energy is going to change your life in a drastic way. And I've seen so many YouTube videos of you talking about physical health. And I know kinesiology is something that you study, and that's something that's really important to you. So can you please explain how physical movement, daily exercise, all plays into everything we just discussed?
Well, it's a myriad of ways, but, you know, I think the first thing you got to remember is that the body is a living mirror of the mind. So the way you're exercising is mirroring back to you how the energy of your mind flows and how you manage it. So someone that doesn't do any exercise is either one of two things. They're caught in their head, but they don't know how to get their mind to engage their body, which means they have usually issues with poor self-confidence or low self-esteem. But if you're over-exercising, that means generally that your mind is needing your body to vent your stress, which would be called a neurosis, because there's something that you don't know how to deal with inside of yourself that's causing so much psychic stress in you that if you don't exercise constantly, then you'll probably become a very angry person and damage a lot of relationships and make a fool of yourself. So you see that whenever a person has got too much mind, but they don't know how to manage it, then they have to vent it off into exercise. So you have these two extremes, not enough and too much, both of which signify some kind of problem in the mind that hasn't been addressed. So there's a psychological issue, which could be any number of things. But what I'm trying to point out here is if you look at the way people engage exercise, you will actually learn a lot about how their mind engages their body to create the reality that they're in, because the physical body and the things we do in the physical world are like the photographic positive of the film negative that our mind produces.
Okay.
So how a person relates to exercise tells you how they relate to their own thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and what their habits and their tendencies are. Now, you got to remember that the mind is not something that has a physical location. It's really a field of activity.
Mm-hmm. It's not in the brain.
No, it's not in the brain. It interfaces with the brain. Look, if you're watching television and I say, where's the television wave? You can't say, oh, it's coming from northeast. It's actually a broadcast that goes in every direction at once, which is called a non-local broadcast. And by tuning to that frequency, it's almost like, think of it like a lake. The television broadcast is like a lake, and your radio is like a straw, and you suck water through the straw, and you can hear me and you talking on this metaphorical radio show. But if you use a straw that's got a different size, that would be like a different station, right?
Mm.
So the mind is actually interfacing with the brain like a radio, and the brain is then not only the mind, but all your chakras. You see, your chakras are what step mind down in from the mental level to the astral level, which is our emotional level, and also is where our mind takes action on our body, which then steps down into the etheric field, which is the field of energy created by all the biochemistry in our body, the electromagnetic energy of our body. And so it steps down into the chakras, from there into the hormonal glands, and the hormones turn out to be the molecule that actually interfaces the invisible mental activity or waves with the physical stimuli that produces the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that we experience. For example, if I increase your testosterone, it's going to make you a lot more aggressive. But if I increase your estrogen, it's going to make you a lot more feminine, a lot more soft and receptive and less aggressive. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I take every one of those hormones actually has an emotional effect on you. So the thoughts that we have that we can't see come not only through the chakra system, but through the brain and the whole body. And every thought produces an emotional reaction, which gives us the ability to feel what we're thinking.
Right.
Feel our
changes
emotions.
The physiology, the hormones and things like that.
Yes, exactly.
So thoughts create emotions, and emotions change the physiology in our body.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Because the thoughts and the emotions couple themselves with the hormonal elements, which then tell the body what it is it's supposed to be feeling right now.
And we choose what we want to believe.
Well, we do only when we are aware that we have beliefs that aren't serving us. So until then, you don't have free will. Only when you can ask, is it really true? Is what my mother told me about God going to burn me in hell, or the church told me God's going to burn me in hell for touching my genitals? Is that really true? See, until you question those thoughts and come to the answer on your own through your own investigation, you're just acting out your programming. So you're really like a robot.
Right.
And robots don't have free will. They're under complete control.
Do you feel like a lot of American citizens are being programmed right now by the media and the government?
Does a bear shit in the woods?
Okay, tell me why that's the case. Let's focus on media. Actually, this gonna be an interesting topic. I don't want to pivot it too much, but I kind of want to get into this with you. Why do you think that the media is programming American citizens
to get them to do exactly what they want them to do, which is
what does the media want them to do?
The media ultimately wants you to take COVID vaccinations and make yourself sick and die.
Let's throw COVID out of this. Let's throw COVID out of this. Okay. That's one situation. What does the media want the American citizens to do?
To put money in the hands that they want it to go in so that they have more power and the ability to continue to control everything.
Okay. Who's they and who do they want to put the money in the pockets of?
Well, they works out to be the people that own the media corporations themselves, which then are the ones that have the greatest influence on our educational institutions, our governments. So it's people like Google, it's people like the World Economic Forum, it's DARPA, it's BlackRock, it's families behind them that are secret and are hard to get information on. The Rockefellers we know about, the Carnegies we know about. There's a whole list of them. So all you got to do is look at the corporations that have the most money in the world, and you'll see what they've invested in. And just look at the book, Oneness versus the 1% by Vandana Shiva. She shows you exactly where Bill Gates has his money and what he's doing with it and how he's ripping people off constantly by lying to them to get them to conform to filling his bank account and giving him more power over you.
Okay, so you believe that BlackRock and Bill Gates and all those people you talk about, their sole motivation is money?
Their sole motivation is money, power, and control.
Control. Okay, and they want to control us because they want more money.
They want more money. They want more power. These are basically like emperors and tyrants that never settle until they have everything. And even then, they're not happy. And the problem is, as I say to people all the time, if you study the history of emperors and kings, they always keep trying to expand their territory, which leads to war. So even when they join each other, eventually they have to turn against each other because they all have such an insatiable appetite that they cannot have shared control. So this is the ancient history of the son of the king is the greatest threat to the king because the son always wants to do things differently than his dad. So the king's greatest risk of getting killed was always his own son. Okay, so what you see, my point is, this is a disease that certain people have, and it's an insatiable appetite for power, control, and money because they're not happy until they have everything. The problem is the more they have, the more they have to start taking over the people that once helped them, and so you can get to the point where you end up in a world war.
and we're on the brink of world war right now. We really are.
Well, we're already in one. It's called a fifth generation warfare. It's PSYOP.
Yeah, what's PSYOP?
It means it's a psychological operation to brainwash people to get them to do exactly what you want them to do. Because if you want to take over their resources, you can't start dropping atomic bombs or you'll destroy everything that you're trying to take from them.
Right. And what do they want us to do?
They want us to be subservient, and they want to get rid of a lot of us because they think of us as useless eaters, sheep, rats, and vermin. Right.
And they want us dependent on them.
They want us completely and utterly dependent on them, but they also want to experiment on us because they're all mad scientists that want to see how much control they can get, which just feeds their ego.
And they want us sick, and they want us to have diseases.
Because that's highly profitable. That's why the education, that's why you go look at what it takes to be a dietitian. You learn how to feed people crap. Most nutritionists don't have a clue how the soil works. They don't know anything about farming. So how can you be a nutritionist if you don't even know where food comes from or how the soil works? That's complete horse shit.
Right.
So you see all these major university corporate programs are all funded by the very corporations that want to railroad you into thinking a certain way because it produces tons of disease, which makes you highly profitable to them because they create the disease and they offer you the drugs and the pills and the surgeries for the solution, right? See, if you create a fuel shortage, everybody's going to pay a lot more money for fuel. So you just pretend there's not enough fuel and you can triple the price of your fuel and nobody can do anything about it. But if everybody knew you had 20 billion gallons of fuel and you were playing the game, then they wouldn't fall for it so easily, but they still have to come up with fuel. So you see, once you get enough power over the main resources that a society needs then you have total control over it. And if you make people tired, sick, weak, and insecure by feeding them junk, not paying them enough, and creating an environment where it's hard to succeed, then they don't have any fire left in them to resist you. And if you get rid of all the enlightened people by calling them people that are telling lies and censor them, like, Mercola and all the ones that tell the truth, then you knock out the leaders that inspire people. So, I was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division. Look, the first thing they teach you in battlefield strategy training is there's two things you got to do to take over an enemy: knock out their communications and cut off their food supply. Well, what have the global elites been doing forever? Controlling our communications, censoring them, spying on us constantly and making us pay for it, and poisoning our food supply so that we don't have enough energy and vitality to mount a resistance. So they've been staging what's going on right now for 100 years.
Yeah. And I'm telling you this, and my audience is going to learn this about me too. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about, vaccines. I don't talk about anything like that. I talk about personal growth and self-development, and people can make their own choice, right? But
that is personal growth and self-development. So, if you take those things out of the mix, then you've taken out the most important things of life. So to talk about personal growth and self-development, you got to talk about the resistance. Just like when you go to the gym, if you go to the gym and say, I'm not going to talk about weightlifting or resistance, then you're not talking about exercise. So you got to look at what is causing psychological resistance, because that's how you either grow or you get squashed.
Right. And at the end of the day, people are going to make their own choices.
Sure.
Right. And I don't want to, get on my podcast or go on my Instagram and tell people whether they should get vaccinated or not. Just like I made my own choice.
Teach them how to think.
They're going to make their own choice. Right. Well, and that's why we talk about consciousness, right? That's how we talked about, thoughts create emotions and emotions change your physiology.
Yeah.
And we also were talking about how physical health, exercise is really important as well. But when we talk about the media and things, and the news, whether it's CNN, whether it's Fox News, they're both equally evil. They're both trying to just control us to put more money in the elite's pockets, which I agree with. I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with most of the things that you're saying. Yeah. But what can the people that are listening do to get accurate information?
Well, you have to find people that have a history of telling the truth, like Robert F. Kennedy, Children's Health Defense Newsletter, Sayer G. Just look at all the people that got censored, the Big 12 that got attacked. They're the ones telling the truth. That's exactly why they knocked them out. Naomi Wolf, they knocked her right out for telling the truth. So all you got to do is look at who is being blackballed for telling the truth, and then you know who to go listen to. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And it's tough. They take away their platforms, right? I mean,
why did they kill Robert F. Kennedy? Because he told the truth about stuff they didn't want you to know about. Why did they kill Martin Luther King? Because they didn't want you having a spiritual relationship. It makes people too strong.
Right.
Why did they kill Abraham Lincoln? Well, a number of reasons, but he wanted to free the slaves, and they didn't like that.
And, as you're saying on this, it's really discouraging, because I am never going to have the courage of Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm never going to have the courage of Abraham Lincoln. I'm never going to have the courage of these people to speak the truth. And it's like, what do I do now? And this is getting a little personal now. I'm like, what do I do now? I believe a lot of the things you're saying. I really do. And I believe that the media is crooked and evil. I do. And if what you're saying is the truth, that Dr. Martin Luther King and Abraham Lincoln were killed because they were telling the truth, and they had integrity and courage, and they were standing up for what they believed in, and they still couldn't get it done, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Well, they did get it done. The slaves got freed, and black rights.
Well, look where we are. Look where we are, though.
Right, but remember, you see, here's a concept that you really need to grab a hold of as a young man. You're in Earth School. This is a spirit gym. Consciousness cannot exist without two polarities. Consciousness is a psychic substance produced not blindly, but in living awareness of opposites. You can't have good without bad. You can't have male without female. You can't have light without dark, inside without outside, north without south. So in order for spirit or God to be conscious of itself, it has to generate these two polarities. Good has no meaning without evil.
That's a good point.
We're in a field that is actually a field of action in which we confront the polarities of consciousness, and each of us is given a chance to decide what moral values and what ethical principles we will use to live and die for. And you're not a warrior until you know what you're willing to die for. Until then, you're still a child looking for what it is that you value enough to give your life to. And that's what those men were. They knew what they valued enough to give their life to, and that's why they're heroes. And we're all on the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is to liberate yourself from tyranny, to liberate yourself from your own story and your own self-imposed limitations, and to come into contact with reality.
Yeah.
Until you come face to face with reality, you never know what the truth is. You never know who you are. You never even know why you're here.
Right.
But the ultimate reality is God, unconditional love, cannot know itself unless it creates conditions by which it can love itself unconditionally. So at the end of the day, we all have the freedom of choice to align ourselves with evil or align ourselves with good. But we have to establish what is good, and is what's good for me good for everybody. So the question I ask myself is, what would love do now? What would love do now when someone's trying to force me to follow a medical procedure that I don't think is safe or good? Well, love would defend its family, and love would tell the truth at any expense. Or I'm not a warrior yet. I don't know what is important, and therefore I'm easy to control because I don't have a sense of direction or values.
Yeah.
That's why all children in tribal societies had to go through initiation into manhood to become a warrior, because if you didn't get to the point where you could sacrifice yourself for the tribe, then you were still a child, and you were actually you are a burden on the tribe, because the tribe can't afford to hunt and feed and care for somebody that doesn't contribute to the sustainability and the thriving of the tribe, or the tribe will burn out.
Yeah.
So these are the stages we all are going through, whether we know it or not. This is Earth School. This is where we come to learn who and what we really are. And as we learn more and more and we embody it, then our spiritual sphere expands. So spirituality can be defined as a progressively greater sphere of awareness.
Yeah.
Right? So as you grow in awareness, you don't just think about yourself, you think about others. Then you don't just think about the others that you love, you think about the people of the world. And then you realize that the world couldn't be here without the sun, so you realize you're a citizen of the solar system. Then you realize that you have to be a citizen of the galaxy because the sun's part of the galaxy and the galaxy's part of the universe. So you come to the realization that whoever and whatever I am was produced by the entire universe. And then you have to say, well, what made the universe? Well, it's this thing we call God. If you want to go scientifically, it's pure potential. But obviously it's conscious because it creates life and it creates form that also carries the qualities of God, which is creativity, intelligence, the capacity to make decisions, the capacity to think, the capacity to feel, the capacity to love, the capacity to divide, the capacity to destroy. Those are all the qualities of God. Without those, God could never know itself.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot to think about here, man. And you did explain that extremely well. You articulate your thoughts beautifully, and it was great having you on this podcast today. I think my audience is going to learn a lot from this. And if there's one lesson that they can take from my conversation today with Paul Chek, it's to make your own decisions and think.
Think for yourself.
Think for yourself. Don't blindly follow CNN or Fox News.
No,
okay?
And here's the key question. Remember,
Please.
Very quickly, Steiner's model of the soul is, to give it to you quickly to make a key point, the mineral soul. Steiner says anything with an inside or an outside has a soul. The mineral soul evolves to be the biological soul. That's where we get plant life, tree life, and everything that supports animal life. So a child has a mineral soul. That's where you get your bones and your teeth from and your structure from. Then you have a biological soul. That's called your instincts and the wisdom of your body or your subconscious mind. And then you develop an intellectual soul. Okay? That's what forms the ego. In order to have free will, your ego is created by other people. If you ask yourself, of all the thoughts and ideas in your head, how many of them are authentically yours? And you tried to track them back to the people that taught you about money or about finance or about how to exercise, you would see that 98 to 99% of the ideas in your head that you think of as your own actually are given to you by somebody else, and your own inner process is just using them like a calculator or a computer uses software. In order to have free will, you have to evaluate what you thought was your own ideas. And it's easy to do when they start causing pain And a lot of the things our parents and society teaches us causes us pain. And so Steiner says that your awareness soul begins to emerge the day you ask, is it really true? Is the medical system really looking after me and my interests? When you answer that honestly, then you start creating freedom because now you can see the truth. Is the government really looking after me and my interests and everybody else's interests? Well, just look at the history of it, study it, and you'll say yes or no, and that will be what's true for you. So you have to grow awareness of what is true based on your beliefs as they mix or conflict with reality. And then as your belief system gets modified by you through your own choice, then you know what you're fighting for. Then you know what's important to you, because now you're living your truth and your beliefs, not somebody else's.
Yep.
Okay. So that's the hero's journey. And that's the task of the warrior, is to decide what is and isn't true. So I know when I lay my life on the line, I'm fighting for something that's not only good for me, but it's good for my people and it's good for everybody, or it's probably not worth dying for, right? Mm-hmm. Dying in a fist fight because someone squeezed your girlfriend's ass is not a good idea, because you could probably solve that with negotiation or learning to do martial arts and just choke them out until the cops get there. But killing someone for that, it's not worth it. But killing somebody because they broke into your house with a shotgun and they're about to kill you to take your food and money, that's worth dying for. Defending your country against another country. I joined the army because I thought we were under the attack by the Russians. I joined the army during Grenada and the Cuban Missile Crisis because, you know, Cuba is not very far from the United States, and they were setting up, you know, rocket launchers for intercontinental ballistic type missiles that could hit us. So I said, I can't let that happen. I don't want my family to die or anyone to die in a nuclear blast. So I joined the military and became a paratrooper so I could go defend what I believed in, which is the United States of America and moral and ethical rights, that we should not kill people just because we don't like them, right? So once you develop an awareness soul, then you evolve to the creative soul. Then you start to get past just survivability, right or wrong, who am I, what am I doing, to how can I be creative and add more love and beauty to the world and make it better for all living beings.
Wow.
Okay. Then you grow to have an intuitive soul, which means that you don't actually rely on your thinking processes, because now you realize that you are one with the mind of the universe, or the mind of God, and anything that you want to solve, all you got to do is ask the question and be brave enough to sit still for long enough to receive the answer, but be very clear within yourself so that you're not afraid to receive the answer, because if you're too afraid to hear the truth, you'll always block it. So by the time you get to the development of the intuitive soul, you've lived enough life and you've become honest enough with yourself to be able to handle the truth as a real adult and a real warrior. Mm-hmm. Then you go from the intuitive soul to spirit soul union. That's where you begin to have experiences of becoming one with all that is. Those are called legitimate enlightenment experiences or mystical experiences. And then you realize the truth of why it's all here and why it is this way. And then it's easier to deal with, because the worst thing that'll happen to you is that you'll die and you'll be one with the truth of yourself, which will be one with everything, because we all come from the same ocean. You know, Rumi says, you are not a drop of the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. And that's the truth.
Love it. All right, so now we're going to play a quick little game before we hop off the podcast today. I'm going to say a term. It's either biohacking term, health term, food source, some form of radiation. And I just want a quick, good, bad, overhyped, underhyped, extremely dangerous, not that dangerous. Just want to get quick couple word answers, okay? We're going to spit fire.
I'll do my best.
Okay, cold plunge.
Very good idea.
Yoga.
Good idea for most people.
Intermittent fasting.
Good idea for most people.
HGH.
Not a good idea for most people, because you should learn how to create it yourself. I'm 61 and I haven't used any of that kind of shit, and I never need to.
Nice. Ice cream.
Make sure it's certified organic and you don't have dairy intolerance.
Okay. Red light therapy.
Potentially very good. Be careful that you're using bulbs that don't emit too much electromagnetic pollution, or you're making one benefit and stepping backwards with another one.
Okay. EMF radiation.
Very dangerous. Be more aware of it and start thinking about the effects on your health, and listen to my podcast that I did with the founder of Q-Link.
Okay.
What are they called? Oh, I'm brain farting right now, but I have a whole podcast with the
Living in 4D with Paul Chek.
It's
That's
true,
the podcast, right?
Yeah, living 4D with Paul Chek. It's
Living in 4D.
Dmitry Soroff or Soros. Dmitry
Okay.
Soroff, I believe. He's the founder of. It's late in the day. I get up at 3:30 in the morning, so I'm pretty tired right now. Anyhow, it's this technology.
Yeah, EMF radiation blocker.
Yeah, very, very high-end technology. Dmitry
I like
Soroff.
I like
It's all
that.
in there.
Okay, next one, blue light exposure.
Stressful to your brain hormonal system, nervous system, and disrupts your ability to sleep, and therefore leads you more likely to be broken down, inflamed, and tired.
Okay,
That's
CBD.
why I'm wearing these glasses.
Right, me too. CBD oil.
Very good if you get a clean source, very toxic if you don't.
Okay, yogurt.
Very beneficial on many levels as long as it's certified organic and your body doesn't have a reaction to dairy, which a huge percentage of people do.
Right, I'm one of those people. We only got 4 more. Here we go. Coffee.
Use very sparingly and make sure that it's not supplementing for a lack of discipline to get to bed on time, or you'll just burn yourself out.
Psilocybin.
Very healing, very capable of inducing higher states of conscious awareness, but in the wrong hands, potentially dangerous.
Masturbation.
Something that we should all embrace to learn to take responsibility for pleasuring ourselves so we don't become codependent and needy in relationships.
Interesting. And last one is alcohol.
One of the most dangerous addictive drugs in the world, and far less effective and good for you than marijuana.
Okay. Oh, actually, I was going to say marijuana.
Again, outdoor ground, organic soil, sunlight, very, very good. But the thing with marijuana is you got to be careful that you don't become too passive, because it makes people very overly relaxed and tend to procrastinate a lot.
Yeah.
So I connected to the spirit of the marijuana plant and said, if you have a message for humanity, what is it? Because of all the problems with marijuana. And the spirit of the marijuana plant said this to me: look at what I teach you. Don't just stand there, grow.
Interesting. And last one, Adderall.
Adderall, I forgot what that is. It's a drug.
It's like a Ritalin, Vyvanse. A lot of college kids take it to focus. Amphetamines.
That's a compensation for not having 4 doctors.
Right. Okay. All right, Paul Chek. Thank you so much for your time today. This was an awesome conversation. To all the people out there listening on Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a review, an honest review. We recommend 5 stars. And I will drop the link to Paul Chek's socials, his website, his podcast, and more in the podcast notes. Thank you guys so much. And I will see you guys on another episode of the Live Better Now podcast.
Lots of love.